Hey, my friends. It's been a while since I've made a face video. It's been a while since I've made a video that wasn't just a review of a deck, and I don't have any problem with deck reviews, because I enjoy doing them when they're in front of me, or when it's a deck that I find interesting or irritating. But instead of doing a deck review today, I'm going to just share with you some things that I have learned, which is really the main reason I started this channel, and it is my favorite thing to do as a video creator and scene. So if you follow my Instagram channel, I was gonna call my Instagram channel. It's not really a channel, is it? This is a channel. Instagram's just Instagram. Anyway, if you follow my Instagram, my Insta, as the kids are saying, kids don't use Instagram, they use TikTok. I'm too old for TikTok. It's exhausting. Anyway, I have been reading at a night market in Rhode Island, here in Providence, and it's once a month, but I'd never done that before. This is my first sort of recent 2022 experience with that, and it was the thing I had actually sort of actively avoided for a long time because I really did not think I would be very good at it. I really did not think I would enjoy it, and it turns out that I am really good at it and I do enjoy it. But I've learned some lessons from doing it, and I'm actually really sort of surprised how much I enjoy doing it. I really thought I would find it overwhelming. I thought I would find it draining, and I thought it would be taxing and just messy and not cool. And it turns out that I really find it energizing. I really enjoy doing it, and it's not taxing at all. In fact, I sort of leave the markets often kind of energized and feeling excited and really in love with this art form that we share. And so I thought there would be some things I could share with you if you ever wanted to do this as, you know, a professional thing, as having a party and inviting friends and reading for a bunch of people in a row, you know, just whatever. Like if you ever want to sort of read for the public at large, whatever the public at large means to you, kind of in rapid succession. And so there are some things I'm going to share. Yeah, let's get started. So I want to start just by getting some super practical things out of the way, and they're literally just like self-carry kinds of things that you want to have with you when you're reading. And really, like, the first is water. You're going to need it. You're going to want it. You're going to get a dry throat from talking so much. Even if you are kind of a collaborative, dialogue-y reader, you're going to need water. I need water, but I also tend to get a dry throat even with water, so I am a fan of these mofos, which I have been using since my theater days. And they're called Gruther's Pastilles. They're glycerin. I always feel like I'm on the edge of doing an ASMR video. Yes, they are glycerin pastilles, glycerin throat drops. They are black currant, although I think they have red currant as a flavor as well. I don't know. It's been a minute. They come from Switzerland, although I don't know that they're still made there because it says original. Oh, no, it does. Original formula handmade in Switzerland. Anyway, any kind of glycerin throat drop is a good thing, but these are like my first love. They're spendy, but they work better than anything else I've tried. They kind of are like a solid version of throat coat tea. If you've ever had throat coat tea, that is also very effective. I do not like hot beverages most of the time, but especially here in the Sahara, I was going to say, here in summer, same thing. But anyway, I love these, and the nice thing about them too is they're a little chewy, so it's not like a hard candy. You know, if you need to sort of like masticate it quickly, you can do it, and you can move on to your next reading. So water, something to suck on, as it were, that will keep your throat lubricated, as it were. It's a good thing I don't monetize my channel, because I would be getting demonetized right now. But these things are really helpful, just totally practically. Where I read at this market, they have very sort of modern setup where, you know, you can bring your water bottle, and they have those little water shooter things that are above the water, what we call in New England bubblers, water fountains. They have the little thingy you put your water bottle under, it goes boop and fills your water. But if they don't have that, bring more than you think you'll need. Have some way to contact you. These are my business cards. Um, it's with sort of on-demand printing, things have gotten relatively cheap. So these are I use Moo, which is a New England-based sort of print-on-demand kind of mass printing company, and they have just like really affordable options. These are cotton recycled paper, so they don't have that sort of like business cardy look. They actually look a little ragged, but I don't mind that because I like the idea that it's recyclable paper. Mine are very simple. They just have my logo on the front. On the back is just like contact information and a QR code that takes them to my website. But those are helpful, and I just sort of throw some. There's a big table where like all the readers have their bios, where I am, but just to have some out there, but also at the table. Like, not a lot of people take them, but it's good if people want to contact you or whatever, to have something. What I may do and what I've seen some readers do, which I think is really effective, is they actually have a postcard that sort of highlights them, has their photo and just more specific things about what they do, which I think is also a really good idea. So at some point I may invest in those. And the final thing that I think is just really practically useful is your cache. I try to go cache free. I have my little Square reader, but most people still, even during this time of plague, opt for cache. And so to have the change available is useful. I had someone very thoughtfully give me a $100 bill and want change. So I'm glad I had it. I do wish, you can't choose what people do, but I do wish, people would remember that a small tarot reader is likely to not have change for a $100 bill, but happily I did. So, just be prepared for anything. Obviously, it's better to get paid than not get paid. I will say that people who pay cash tend to tip when people use my Square reader because I'm sort of doing everything on my phone. There is a tip option, but they never see it. So, I don't really expect tips, but it's nice when people do it. I think people should offer that, certainly. But anyway, I could hand my phone over to them. It just feels gross, in 2022 to like say, hey, here's this thing that I have spent all day touching. Please put your cooties all over it. Especially as diseases continue to crawl up and down our spines. So anyway, have cash if that's the thing. If you're charging, make sure you have change. And sort of be prepared for that, I guess, is the other thing. So those are the practicalities. Having some way to keep track of your time is good. I have used my phone. Hello. I have this hourglass, which is very sort of, it's a lot, it's very tacky in a good way. And a lot of folks have hourglasses just because it feels cool. It just feels sort of like, I don't know, spooky and fun and old-fashioned. This is a 15-minute one. I was really looking for a 20-minute one because most of my readings are 15 to 20 minutes. I did find a 20-minute one that I loved, and it was over $100, and like this was like 15. So I did not spend $100 on that. But you could spend as much as you wanted to, if you wanted to. My bad habit is that whether I'm using my phone or whether I'm using this, I forget to start it, or look at it. So most of my readings really do come in at about 13 to 15 minutes, honestly. It's rare that I'll spend 20 minutes on a reading, no matter what kind of reading I'm doing. I just tend to sort of get cut to the chase. That's come with, more than 20 years experience of sort of honing and crafting readings and kind of cutting out the stuff that I don't need, cutting out the teaching of tarot card meanings and just sort of trying to say what needs to be said and go cut right to the chase. So, that is one thing, but it is good to have. The reason I like the hourglass is it gives me some sort of visual thing when I remember to use it to just keep track of. And what I tell clients when they sit down is that it will take 15 to 20 minutes, but if we get through the first question, the first reading quickly, and there's more time left, that I'll read about something else if they want me to. I tell them, look, this is your time. I want you to feel like you've gotten the most from it. And that, I will read as many things as we have time for. So, The other thing is, I've shown this before too, if you watched one of my deck videos. When I first when I went to the first thingy, they put me in a very dark corner and they turned all the lights off. And so I could not use one of the decks I had brought with me because it was very subtly colored. I had to go with something, I had to go with the Hoi Polloi tarot. And just because it was so simple that I could really see it. Which, while I'm on the topic, I will say this. It's a good idea not to read with vintage decks at these kinds of things because someone put their iced coffee down on my table and knocked it over and almost wiped out a vintage deck. Luckily, their iced coffee container was empty. So I got this light to take with me. You know, it's just a good... And it looked great on the table, I have to say. What I'm going to do, though, because I did find it a little blinding, is frost this hurricane lamp domey thingy because it was just a little much. So that I have gotten some spray paint for. Are there other practicalities that come into this that I should mention? I mean, you know, being over-prepared is better than being under-prepared. I would bring with you decks that are not your most precious because, you know, again, you don't really know what is going to happen. You know, if I run up to go to the bathroom, I'm not going to sort of take all my decks with me. And so not that I have ever sort of worried that anyone was going to take one. But, you know, if someone did come over and swipe a deck while I was away, there goes that deck, right? So I would just be thoughtful about that. I should be more mindful about asking people not to put their drinks on the table. But, you know, again, I get so into what I'm doing that I forget. So, I mean, that's another thing I would say, too, is a thing that I don't do that I think you should be more, if you do this, is to be more mindful, both in tracking your time and making sure that people don't put their iced coffee on your table. Because you don't want to ruin your deck. Even if it's not a precious deck, it's still a deck that you have worn in and gotten used to, etc. So I would say that. Another thing for folks who want to do this thing in charge, I came in the door charging $20 per reading for 15 to 20 minutes. And that seemed reasonable to me because 20 minutes, $20, easy to give change, right? What I discovered after my second one is that I was massively underpricing compared to all the other readers there. And there have been like 6 to 9 readers each time I've been there. I will be bumping up my fee, in part just not to undersell the other readers, because I don't feel like that's fair. There's no, at the market that I'm reading at, there's no kind of requirement one way or the other, but I do feel like it'd be fair that I price myself at roughly the same price everyone else does. Some folks charge quite a lot for less time than I do. You know, I think I'll go with 30 again just to make it easy to give change, but we'll see what happens there. I won't change the length of my readings, though, because I don't feel like I've needed more time than I've had. But sort of getting a sense of what other readers are charging would have been helpful. I did kind of go online and look up who I knew would be there, but a lot of folks don't have websites or they just have Facebook or social media pages. Their rates aren't on there, so I made a guess. It turned out to be, you know, I guess the other thing, too, is I would like to know that people aren't choosing me just because I am cheap. Just because I'm a cheap slut. I mean, I am, but, you know, that shouldn't be the reason. Where I am, they asked us to provide a little bio, and I have found that, I don't know if it's the bio or just the energy, but a lot of the readers I've spoken to tend to get similar clients throughout the course of an evening. I put in my bio that I'm very attuned to people who have never gotten a reading before and who want one and who might be a little nervous, which is the thing that I actually am very good at and something I do sort of cater to. And I have found that reliably, at least half my clientele, every market, are people who are newbies who have never gotten a reading before, and I'm their introduction to it. So I guess that's my way of saying sort of know who your target audience is to a degree, but also like know that if you are targeting an audience, that you are sort of well suited to that. You know, if you are, you know, if you're not, you know, the woman behind me last time got a lot of kids, you know, early teens, not, you know, like 11, 12, 13, 14. And I don't read for people under 18 generally, and I didn't put that in my bio. You know what I mean? But that's the thing you have to sort of anticipate, right? Like if they do ask you what kind of readings you do, you know, and she took those clients and she was fine doing it, but it was a thing neither of us expected. I got a lot of people who had never had readings before. So, one, sort of know what you're prepared to do. Two, I guess, have an answer for if someone who's 14 does come along and want a reading, will you read for them? Are there any kinds of parental permissions you would seek in that case? Just know what you're in for. I guess know if there are any laws about that. But I think going forward, I would probably put on my sign 18 plus, just for my own sanity, I guess. It's weird though. You do tend to get similar themes. You tend to get similar types of clients over the course of an evening. And again, if you sort of put something in your bio, that's the thing that you're going to get. So if you're not if you're nervous about being for someone's first experience, I guess just know that. And I think, one thing I think about is that as a reader, I do feel like an ambassador is a representation of divination, of tarot, to people I'm working with. And so when I say that I'm a good option for someone who's new, I'm recognizing that I'm also setting the tone for future experiences with the cards. So, or with readings. So I try to be aware of that too. I am, when I'm reading, a relatively nice person, what I mean? Like, I may not be necessarily nice in real life, but I am very kind as a reader in terms of engaging with and making people feel comfortable, and I have a whole spiel that I've worked out over the years. Not spiel, that sounds sort of dismissive, but, I sort of begin my pitch. I'm like, here's how this is going to work, and this is your time, and if you have any questions, please stop me. And I'm constantly stopping to check in with the client, with the querent, to make sure that I'm connecting with them, to see whether I'm addressing their concerns, whether what I'm saying really sparks something or connects to what they are experiencing in life. You know what I mean? So there is that as a piece of the equation, and setting expectations, I guess, is where I'm going with that. At the beginning, what I do, how I do it. Someone sat down and said, do you do mediumship? Do you do channeling? And I'm very honest, and I don't. And I said, nope, just tarot. And maybe I shouldn't say it that way, but it's just tarot. It's what I do. So I talk about this in, I think, both of my books. I'm very honest about what I can and can't do and how I view myself as a reader. The other thing is that, on this channel, I pitch constantly, have a question, have a question, have a question, have a question. And I really firmly believe that. Nobody comes to a market festival sort of thing with a question, really, at all. Some people may have an area of life they've worked with or they want to work with. I've maybe gotten 2 questions every time I've done this where people sort of come in knowing what they want to talk about. So the sort of thing that I rail about constantly about having a question kind of tends to go out the window if I'm not prepared for that. And I have to be prepared for that. So I do tell clients, very honestly, I say the more specific you are, the more specific I can be. If you have a question, the better you'll probably feel about the reading. I can do a general reading. You're going to get a general answer. Again, I'm very diplomatic about that. It is their time. They're paying me to give them what they are coming for. And so I do that, but I try to be honest about what's possible if they don't have a question or an area they'd like to focus on. One thing that I will say that I'm still struggling with is finding an all-purpose spread that I really like. I've sort of defaulted to past, present, future as my general spread, with 3 cards as past, 3 as present, 3 as future. That seems to serve well, and people seem really to like it. I, as a reader, don't love it. I feel like I'm not giving what I'm capable of as much as I can. So if you have general all-purpose spreads that you find really effective, feel free to let me know in the comments or do a video response, because I'm desperately sort of seeking the perfect general spread, and I haven't found it yet. And I may never. It's probably not out there because I don't like doing general readings. But sort of if you're like me and you prefer working with a question, you should know going in that almost no one will have one. That a lot of people are really just sort of experimenting. They're there. It's a whim. They want to do something fun. And they're kind of looking at you to sort of guide them and provide them something cool. So past, present, future seems to get people that, they're always really impressed. I think that serves them well. As a reader, I would like to serve them better, and so I'm trying to find a spread that I find more effective. The next thing I would say is you really have to sort of be prepared that people who are coming for readings at these kinds of events tend to be more inscrutable, more closed off than folks who are maybe a client who are reaching out to you formally or through your Etsy shop or your website or even a friend. They are not familiar with you generally, unless they come to the market a lot and read with you a lot. They are probably not used to getting readings. They're probably not used to working with a professional reader. They don't generally know what goes on in our little tarot world behind the scenes. And they're not there to trust you, and it makes sense. I wouldn't really be either. And they're also very private and protective, again, as they should be, because they don't want to reveal much to you. There are some clients who are like ready to tell you their birthday and social security number, and I always like, I really don't need that personal information, and I don't need people's birthdays to read, so I ask them to not share personal information with me. But I've been reading for people, and they're just looking at me like stone-faced, and I'll say, am I checking in? I'll check in with them, and they'll sort of, stoically sort of nod or look at me strangely. Almost inevitably, at some point in a reading, there comes a point where I will break through the trust barrier, and they will admit. And it's almost sort of more rewarding than when someone's like eagerly telling you the whole time how great you're doing. Like when you sort of win someone over and they're like, "Yeah, that's exactly what's going on," or "Oh my God." But you just have to sort of know, as I always say, you can't sort of wither and die if your confidence as a reader is based on how the person sitting across the table is reacting to you, because people react very differently. And I have found in these environments, they are not effusive in their praise, especially at the beginning. And so if you feel yourself withering and dying inside, which, years ago I would not have been ready to do this. It's difficult. You know what I mean? You have to sort of keep yourself trusting your ability, keep yourself confident, keep yourself going, and sort of trust your gift to carry you through. Sometimes it will not connect. Sometimes it will, and they will sort of reveal a little bit. You'll never really know everything. There are some people who you win over and then the floodgates open. But you sort of have to be prepared for people to not validate you all the way through. It's not why they're there. And of course, you're revealing often things that are personal and deep, and they're not as open about that as they might be otherwise. So just know, the kinds of reactions you're going to get are really going to be varied by the kind of people you're working with. And that most people are very closeted and closed in a situation like this. I have found just about every time that happens, there is a moment where sort of a crack forms and they allow themselves through it. And the more inscrutable, the more sort of stone-faced people are to start, often, the more kind of difficult it is to keep going. Checking in with them really helps. You know what I mean? How am I? And I don't do it as a validative thing. What I want is to make sure they're getting what they want. And so I'll say, tell me if this is not connecting. Am I missing something? Inevitably they will sort of give you more information. And if you're missing something, then you can go back and reconstruct, I can't remember what the phrase, redirect, I guess is the phrase I'm looking for there. So just sort of know that like a lot of people are very nervous, they're very closed off, they're very private, and they may never open up. They may just sort of say, okay, thanks, and move on. And that brings me to my next thing, which is that people are really shy. And a lot of folks do have something they want a reading about, but they're afraid to tell you. And I have found another way to sort of help people relax and feel comfortable is really to tell them that. To be really honest with them and say, hey, look, the more specific you are with me, the more specific I can be with you. But also I have said literally, like, I know a lot of people have something that they're really burning to ask about and they're too shy to do it. It's okay. I'm not going to go repeat this to anyone. I don't know you. So even if I did, you know what I mean, but I won't. And you want a good reading. So feel free to, even if it's just like an area of your life. And that usually, or often anyway, I can't say usually in this world, that often will make people sort of say, okay, well, I want to know about my love life. And 99% of the time, that's the thing they want to know about. And of course they do. I mean, that's really what everyone wants to know about, right? Like, if you're coming for a reading at a festival, most people want to know about their love life. I mean, it's inevitable. It makes sense. I'm totally happy to read about that. Sometimes people just need a little sort of permission to ask about those things, And so as part of my pitch, I again try to say there's no subject that's off limits. I don't read about diagnoses health-wise. Almost anything else I'll do. And I did, at a recent reading, do a health rating because the person sort of explained their situation to me. And I said, why not? It makes sense. I'm not diagnosing something. And it went pretty well. and they referred me to other friends who came the next week. And I guess that's another thing too, is like if you build a rapport with clients, they may say, oh, I'm going to send my friends next week or next month or whatever. And that has happened. So, giving people permission to ask what they want to ask is nice. It does sort of open them up and make them feel safe enough to work with you. And again, that's part of our job. We're sort of there to make people feel comfortable and safe to explore whatever it is they want to explore. So giving them permission to do that, telling them there's no stupid thing to want a reading about, etc., it's helpful. So that's another thing that I've learned too. And I've gotten better at that as I've gone along. And sort of also realized, some people just want permission to sort of tell the truth, and to know that they're not silly for wanting that. Whatever it is they want to read about. And most most readings they want are about relationships. That's what most people care about. Work and relationships, money, jobs, housing. Those are the things that I find most people want to know about if they do give me a category or a subject. So, I guess the final thing is you don't really know what you're going to get. You don't really know what's going to come up. And so to sort of just be prepared generally for your own well-being and for the well-being of the people you're reading for, that any number of things can come up. The last time I did one of these festivals, it was an emotional evening for some reason. It was just one of those nights where things kept coming up for people, whether they had a question or whether they didn't, or whether they maybe had a question and the answer sort of brought up some emotions. Just knowing, that might be there for you is helpful because you want to know how you're going to react when someone does get emotional, if they do. What can you do to take care of someone? This is sort of old classic tarot guidance, you know what I mean? You may want to have a list of resources for people who might be in dangerous situations, abusive situations, addictive situations, etc. That's smart to have. Remember, if you are not a counselor, you're not a counselor. And, I'm not saying that anything terribly shocking came up. A lot of what came up was not very shocking. But, I will give enough away to say that I did a reading for someone who very clearly hasn't felt seen in a long time. And as we went through the reading, it started becoming clear how much they need to be seen. And as we talked about that, I started getting emotional because I felt very sort of moved by their situation, but also about how tarot can do what it does. In that case, I have to be very aware not to make it about me and my emotions. That's one thing. Like, I can't start sobbing in the middle of a reading. But also to know that these kinds of things can come up. And then, in another situation, someone sat with me and we were talking about a family situation. And I found myself astonished by what was going on. You know what I mean? And they were shocked too. And it was sort of like, whoa, we were like shocked together, which was a nice sort of bonding moment. You know what I mean? In this little sort of 15-minute window. But just to sort of know that anything can happen and to sort of just be prepared for that, I think is very smart. Just to sort of know what's possible that could come up and to sort of arm yourself thoughtfully so that you are able to do what's appropriate and responsible as a reader in that time. So I think that's the last piece of advice I would say. I would avoid fast food that day. Certainly the first time I did it, I was in a rush and it was just not comfortable. I actually don't love eating a big meal at all before one of these things. I need enough to sort of make me feel sated and focused, but not so much that I feel heavy and leaden, and then I'll eat afterwards. I'll have a big meal afterwards. And, just sort of be aware of like table fees and things like that. Since the table fees for this market are very reasonable, since then I've gotten asked to read or submit to read at other markets where the table fees to me are outrageous and they're on par with like what I've made in one night at one of these events. And you don't want to get taken advantage of. Like if you're desperate to get out there and do this kind of thing, don't be taken advantage of as a reader. Make sure that the table fees are reasonable, that you're putting enough of a return on investment into the situation that you're not losing money in the equation. You should come out at least even, if not better than even, if you're paying and receiving payment. So just know that. I would say, some people are very aware of taking advantage of others. And some people, some venues are expensive, and so they try to recoup on the backs of the vendors, and I guess that makes sense. But if you're raking it in as a vendor, that's great. You know what I mean? If you're selling massive baskets and art prints or whatever that are really expensive, that's lovely. If you're doing tarot readings for $20 or $30, you're not going to recoup. So know that. Don't be so desperate to get a gig that you will accept something that is unacceptable. Try to make friends with the other readers. I find that I am very introverted, but when I sort of introduced myself to other readers, they sort of sighed and said, "Oh, thank God someone else is nice," because we're all sort of, I think people who are drawn to this are really introverted, and I have certainly felt that way when people have introduced themselves to me. You know what I mean? And then we all chat afterwards just for a little bit, and it's nice. It's nice to have that connection. It's certainly a good way to meet other readers. Certainly. If there are other readers there, and also just sort of remember that you're representing yourself as a brand, whether you're charging for readings, and so how you behave, how you talk to other readers, how you talk to the event managers, etc., sets a perception of who you are as a reader, as you as a pro, as you as a human. And so it's wise to be thoughtful and aware of that too. You know what I mean? It is a business interaction. Signing up for an event and then not paying your table fees, or drawing out at the last minute when it's not an emergency, you get a reputation as someone who's not reliable. So just know going in that you're actually going to do it, regardless of whether you're in the mood that day. And this is the thing I always say about going pro, is like, just know the reality of what you're doing. When I registered for these events, I registered for the whole year, which means that if October comes along and I'm just not in the mood that night, I either lose my fee or I go and suck it up and do it. One of the first times I did this, was it the first time? It was one of the first times, was the day that Roe versus Wade got overturned, and it was like, fuck, like, who wants to do anything? And we all got there and we were all in a bad mood. You know what I mean? And I think the readings that night reflected it. But just like, you're there, you know what I mean? You have to do your job. It's like any other job at that point. So know that too. If you're going to commit to something, really do it, and recognize that you are setting up your reputation, and that this is a small community. You know what I mean? In your local world, if you're going out there to do this, people talk. So be easy to work with. Don't take shit, but be friendly, be polite, be professional. If you're not taking shit, don't take shit professionally, you know what I mean, in a professional way. You represent you, and so however you want to be perceived is, you can influence, certainly. So I guess that's everything. Yeah, I can't think of anything else. I mean, also, it's just really fun. I really, really have enjoyed doing it. I'm looking forward to doing it more. I'm actually away for the next one, so I'm not going to be there, and I feel like, a little disappointed, even though I'm looking forward to going where I'm going. I'm sort of like, I really enjoy this, and it's become just like another great, little thing about being a tarot reader in a time when things are sort of so shitty. It's been really fun for me, and I just love watching people discover, as clients, and that is really rewarding. And I did have some emotional readings where, for me as a reader, where I was like, wow, this is really powerful. Wow, this is so amazing. And also, like, it's important, I guess I would say, to not get wrapped up in how cool it is and let your ego run wild. Because again, it's always about the querent, it's always about the client, it's about them, If you do give out your information, like, have an email address that's specific to that. Like, don't give out your home address, things like that. Don't allow sort of emotional vampires in, set boundaries, that sort of thing, that you're comfortable with. I haven't had any negative experiences so far, but that is the thing I'm aware of. And I guess another thing I would say is, like, now that this is becoming a regular thing, I'm definitely in the process of formalizing my business finances separate from my private finances, so that that's a thing that are kept separate, that assets are not combined. And that's a little bit of work that I have to do and should have done maybe when I published my first book. But now that it's sort of becoming a more regular thing, that's another thing. I can't really give you business advice, but there's a lot of it out there. So you have to sort of look to your own local and town governments for that sort of thing. So anyway, I hope this was useful and interesting. I hope you're hanging in there. Take care, stay healthy, be good, and I hope to make some more videos. I've gotten a new job recently, which I'm sort of adjusting to, so that's one reason why I haven't been making a lot, and the ones I have been easy for me to make. But hopefully some more soon. So I have some ideas I want to work on. Take care, be good, we'll talk soon. Bye.